Of a background of your areas of specialties in terms of halal and kosher, and what kind of angle are you proposing for your paper presentation for World Halal Research?
Thank you. I'm a professor of food science at Cornell University in the Department of Food Science. We're located in the central part of New York State. I've been there now 37 years and have become involved as a meat scientist in the areas of kosher and halal foods. And we have an organization called Cornell Kosher and Halal Food Initiative, which is how we work with the food industry to help them do kosher and halal, with the religious communities in terms of supervision and helping them do that better, with regulatory agencies secular regulatory agencies to help them when they need to understand issues that might affect kosher and halal, and then finally with consumers as the users of these products to understand what they're looking for, because in America a large part of the kosher and halal market are not Muslims and Jews. There are many other people who purchase kosher or halal foods because they believe it's a higher quality or it has other benefits to them. So that's kind of a very quick background. In terms of the talk, I've been asked to talk about stunned and unstunned slaughter. This is a critical issue for the Muslim community to consider. I tend to lean slightly towards unstunned slaughter being more humane, but you're dealing with this issue of animal welfare, which is sometimes driving people to think that stunned slaughter may be better. However, you also have a question within the religious community of whether, in fact, halal meats can be stunned. The idea is, and I'm not a Muslim, so I've been taught, and based on the teachings, is that it is extremely critical that the animal be alive at the time of slaughter, and that the actual cutting of the animal for bleeding be the source of death. And the problem with any form of stunning is, are you actually sure that the animal is alive at the time of killing? Now, the experiments that people have done certainly show that under ideal conditions, the animal will be able to return to life. And there's some very nice footage that comes out of a university in Spain, out of Girona, where they did that. But they were 3 animals of about the same size that were relatively clean. And when you're dealing with animals, you've got big animals and little animals. You've got wet and dry, lots of wool and not when you're dealing with sheep. And then you have the equipment and the people. If, again, you have 3 animals being killed in an experiment in the laboratory, it's going to be done exactly according to the voltage and amperage that you need. But over time, as you use equipment and as it gets older, etc., are you going to be sure that it's always working properly? And how do you assure a Muslim consumer that the animal was really alive at the time of slaughter if it's been stunned? And part of the argument is that it's addressing animal welfare issues. But it is not clear, because the data is so poorly done and the research is so poorly done, whether in fact stunned or unstunned slaughter is better for the animal from the point of view of the concept of animal welfare. Again, what is very clear is that if you're going to do unstunned slaughter, you need to pay attention to a great number of details of how you handle the animal before slaughter and at the time of slaughter. And you have to have your knife extremely sharp, and you have to use it properly. and this requires training. So even though I believe that, in fact, from the animal's point of view, when done right, when really optimized, unstunned slaughter is actually better. And part of that goes to a concept that has not been proven. It's a hypothesis that when you use a very sharp knife, you know that when you cut yourself sometimes with a very sharp, you don't feel it. And at the same time, it leads to an endorphin rush, which is essentially sometimes referred to in other contexts as runner's high. It's actually quite euphoric. And if you look at an animal expiring that's been properly killed, unstunned, it just quietly expires. And it shows none of the signs of adversive behavior to suggest that it feels anything negative. And I think that's the critical piece. It isn't how long it takes to kill, which is one of the things the Western scientists keep emphasizing. It's the quality of death and the respect of having a religious person saying a prayer and killing it with respect and kindness, as opposed to banging it over the head or electrocuting it by a worker who's just counting how many animals he has to kill till he can go on his break. And so I would argue that the data is not clear at this point. I'm not here to say that we have the data, but that there is a good case to be made for religious stunning being equal to and possibly better, when done right, than non-religious slaughter. And what's interesting in Europe is you have something in Europe which most of the European countries allow called hunting, which, from the point of view of the quality of death for an animal, is going to be much less. Animals killed by hunting sometimes are very painful, and even if done well, the animal knows something's wrong and often is very stressed as they're running and eventually die. So one has to always question, are the people in Europe being sincere in trying to rank religious slaughter from a science point of view when they still allow hunting? And in fact, even in the regular slaughter, they allow 3 types of regular slaughter: mechanical stunning, electrical stunning, and gas stunning. And in some animals, they allow all 3 to use. Now, if they are all being used, are they equal? How do you decide? And yet, they're picking on the unstunned without solid data, and there is a disconnect here. And it appears to be a disrespect for minority religions, for the Jewish and Muslim religions, where, in fact, it is being used for a political agenda and is not about animal welfare, is not about the quality of slaughter, but is a political agenda.